speak now to Norman Brennan, who's a former police officer. He served for 31 years and director of the Law and Order Foundation. And Norman, it's great to have you on the programme. My understanding is you have been actually sitting through a police discipline appeal on this exact subject.
Yeah, you'll have to excuse the noise, Alex. I'm up in central London at the moment. I've been at a discipline hearing this week for 2 Metropolitan Police officers. Both are extremely and exceptionally well-liked, are exceptionally good at their job. One has saved the lives of a number of people. One man who was trying to hang himself. He's also disarmed a man armed with a shotgun. And what they were doing is they were involved in a stop and search in Croydon of a 14-year-old black lad. And everything that they did is absolutely spot on as far as the law is concerned. And what's more important here is that the mother who complained said that her son was stopped because he was black. Well, the son was stopped, as the tribunal heard this morning, was because he fitted the description of one of 4 young black men or young black boys that had robbed somebody and threatened them with a knife. But they've been found guilty of misconduct. And having been on a robbery squad myself and run robbery squads with 4 officers up like they were, I'll be quite honest with you, these officers were absolutely exceptional in their behaviour, and any one of us could have been facing a discipline here in a day, and they could have lost their jobs. Alex, for 2 years, these 2 officers, one has resigned, couldn't take any more. Their lives have been on hold. And I'm telling you now, I fully agree with Rick. The treatment of frontline police officers in Britain, and in particular in the Met, is disgraceful, and the Independent Office of Police Conduct destroys police officers' lives and careers.
How much do you think that this affects actual policing? Because, you know, there's a lot of discussion now about 2-tier policing, that some people are treated differently to others. That is the sense that the general public have, especially when it comes to the policing of protests and marches and activists and so on and so forth. But it seems to me, one thing that Rick was suggesting, and he called it the disproportionality matrix, where the Met Police sort of, I don't know whether they do this tacitly or directly, but encourage people to perhaps not bother going after non-priority crimes, which I assume to mean the little crimes, not the big ones, if it's going to create acrimony with the black community. I mean, does that happen? Is there essentially a sort of indirect decriminalisation of certain offences because they're no longer being investigated or pursued because the police are worried about engaging with people for fear of being called racists?
Absolutely. I 100% agree with Rick. I spoke to Rick yesterday. He's a personal friend of mine. I've known him for a number of years. There are some young black people in Britain and in London. There are some young black people in communities that don't like the police, that won't work with the police. And even if the good Lord came down and anointed every officer and they were perfect and they were RoboCop, they wouldn't work with us. And sadly, some of these people are the ones that commit crime. They don't want to be stopped and searched. They want to be allowed to commit crime and then hide behind their communities that criticise policing. And stop and search, Alex, has gone down from 2009 to 1.5 million to 500,000 last year. And I'm now just waiting to speak to 2 officers. And one of them is on antidepressants. The other one is broken and has put in his ticket. And I'm sitting across here and I'm going to see him in about 15, 20 minutes for a coffee. And you know what? They did nothing wrong. Maybe the odd word or 2 in a very volatile situation. Alex, in their situation, a car drove up on the road, nearly hit them. Somebody shouted, "You should be dead." They were abused and attacked. And what happened was, verbally, and what happened was when these officers were distracted, not only could it put their lives at risk, but these people have actually complained about the officers doing a stop and search for the types of crimes that the public are sick and tired of and want action to be taken. And they might have used the wrong word. I've been in a robbery squad. I've run robbery squads. Do you know what? Those officers were outstanding. And it's these type of officers that are being destroyed by the Independent Office of Police Conduct. And people like Mark Rowley and the senior officers within the Met distance themselves from. Well, I'm telling you now, stop and search is going to go down. Although they haven't lost their jobs, it looks like they've been given final warnings. I've spoken to officers, and I know we're limited for time, that have attempted suicide. strong, hard-working, dedicated men and women, but particular men that I speak to, that because of a complaint and their lives turned upside down and they face losing their job, have attempted suicide. These are not emotive words. These are the ones. I've 11 cases on the go at the moment. And Alex, my expertise is homicide, gun and knife crime. I represent the police, the public and victims. And I'm looking at a country now that's lost. And when you lose the police service and when you lose the will of the police to do the job that they joined to do, we have the streets as lawless as we got. And today is one of those reasons. Officers are hung out to dry by the Independent Office of Police Conduct, chief officers as well, that throw them under the bus. And you know what? I love the job. It was my life. It still is, which is why I'm speaking to you now. Would I recommend anybody now to join British policing? Well, if you do, you'll be putting your life, your reputation and your future on the line and possibly have to turn to drugs to keep you going while you're under investigation. What an indictment of the British Police Service.
I cannot believe the words. I mean, I can believe the words you're saying, but this is harrowing. I mean, 1.5 million stop and search down to 500,000, and you wonder why so many people are being stabbed on the streets. This isn't just about crimes that people are sick and tired of. This is people dying. There's blood on people's hands. If the police aren't allowed to police because they're constantly having to introspect, because they're constantly worried about being accused of something they're not doing in the line of duty, and it's leading to a massive uptick in violent crime, then that itself is criminal. Let's have a listen now to your mate Rick Pryor talking to me.
Police officers, be it on or off duty, are wary and worried about engaging and dealing with various members of particular communities, be it the black community or others, for fear of getting in trouble.
I just can't... This beggars belief. I mean, Norman, how deep does this go? Is this the sort of thing that police officers are regularly talking about with each other? Are they actually making conscious decisions? Are they speaking out loud to one another? Well, we better not arrest him. We better not search him. We better not do this. Well, let's just leave them dealing drugs, because actually, if we try and intervene, if we try and engage with this situation, regardless of the fact it may be criminal, we could find ourselves dragged up in front of a tribunal.
Yes. And there are tens of thousands of Metropolitan Police officers and police all around Britain that are watching this case. I've highlighted it on social media. And you know what? Dozens and dozens of these officers, I've said to the officers here, I will never do what you've done. You have done what we joined the police to do, to serve the public, to protect them, to challenge those that are suspected of committing crime. This individual hadn't actually committed the crime, but the panel found out that he fitted the description. He was absolutely, the officers were absolutely right. Mum made a complaint. I'm sure she's putting in an appeal for money. There was someone writing notes next to me that was actually writing there. Now, let me just tell you, you asked how deep it goes. I'll tell you how deep it goes. I am one of the most passionate, caring police officers that you could want. I'm a rebel on the street. And one day, Alex, I may have mentioned it before, I chased a black suspect armed with a knife. He just carried out 3 armed robbery or armed burglaries in the early hours in Chelsea. He stabbed me in the chest and he nearly killed me. He was black. I didn't stop him, Alex, because he was black. And he didn't stop me because I was white and a police officer. I stopped him because he was a suspect of just carrying out 3 of the most serious crimes you can commit with a weapon. And the reason he stabbed me is because I was the person that was likely to stop him and put him in prison. It's not the colour of the skin that police stop, it's the crime statistics. And sadly, people around Britain are told that the police are racist, we don't care about the black community, we want to pick up on them. Do you know what? The police, black and white, want to police the streets equally, fairly, and I'm afraid they're accused of things that they're often not guilty of. And do you know what? They're guilty by association of these dreadful accusations of being racism.
It absolutely horrifies me, this whole idea of stop and search being something that leaves young people harrowed, that it affects them for the rest of their life. You go through airport security and you get a shakedown. Why? Because we don't want people taking things that could be used for attacks on aeroplanes to protect us all. Every time I've walked through one of those full-body scanners and had people run their hands up and down my legs and my arms and around my midriff to see if I'm packing anything, have I been harrowed and traumatised? Absolutely not. This is an excuse used to destabilise us in order to make sure that criminals can get away with carrying weapons, and it's working. And frankly, we should stop importing this toxic defund the police culture, the BLM baloney from America, which is some sort of utterly perilous neo-Marxist claptrap, which is probably infiltrated and perpetrated by enemies of this country.
Alex, they actually asked the officer, or they brought the George Floyd case in. And do you know what they even asked? This is the panel. They asked the officer that I'm representing, who's become a personal friend of mine, can you name the last 4 black people killed in London? Well, I actually represent these families, or I actually report on it myself. I am the lead spokesman in Britain on homicide, gun and knife crime. I couldn't even answer that question, and the panel was asking that. It's all about basically to sort of cave in to the allegation that the police are unbiased, unconsciously racist, when police officers just want to go out and do their bloody job and protect society.
Listen, I've got some breaking news here. I can't believe we're talking to you at the time that this news has just come through, Norman. Two boys were aged 12 years old when they killed 19-year-old Shawn Seesahai in a machete attack in Wolverhampton. They're believed to be the UK's youngest knife murderers. They've been detained for a minimum term of more than 8 years. They were both aged 12 when they killed the 19-year-old in a Wolverhampton park on the 13th of November last year. They're the youngest children to be convicted of murder in Britain since Robert Thompson and John Venables, who were both aged 11 when they were found guilty of killing 2-year-old James Bulger. The victims' parents, who are from the small Caribbean island of Anguilla, told Sky News they're still in a lot of pain and wonder whether their son was calling for mummy or daddy for help when he was attacked. Sorry, that's really upset me, that. What is going on? 12-year-olds, Norman. 12-year-olds are stabbing people.
You just talked about the murderer, James Bulger. Who do you think was his family spokesman? It was me. I worked closely with Denise and Ferguson, her husband. I cannot tell you how it breaks these people. Denise, what a strong woman. And I know all the details of how James was murdered. And we're talking about these 2 children. What was their sentence today, by the way, Alex?
12-year-old. Norman, how are 12-year-olds stabbing people?
Because they are. Because unfortunately, some parents bring them into the world. There's no parameters. There's no discipline. They don't teach them respect. It's always society's fault. It's always somebody else's fault in Britain when you cannot bring and discipline your children to respect others. There are white kids. There are black kids around Britain. There's 4,000 gangs in Britain, Alex, as young as 12, carrying knives. Some can get access to guns. And do you know what? Getting right back to what we were saying, who the bloody hell does society expect to stop these people? It's police officers.
It's police officers.
Men and women that join to protect society that themselves are not protected. And if you cannot protect the protectors and you destroy these officers' will to police, I'm afraid you're going to lose the best police service in the world. And I gave 31 years of it, and I'm absolutely entitled to defend the frontline men and women, because when I joined the job, I nearly lost my life twice to protect society. And what is it worth nowadays? Giving up your life, giving up your liberty, living at home with your family and your wife and your kids, looking at them, and you're suspended, you're restricted duties. And you know what? All you did was your job. But these people nowadays that want to pick the police apart, everything they do, you have to include racism, because that is the nice token
It's the rot of society. It is the scourge of society. It's the scourge of pragmatism. It's the scourge of fairness and equality. Norman, you've been such a passionate speaker. It's been fantastic talking to you. Let's catch up about this again. I just want to give you an update of this. I cannot believe this story. These 2 12-year-olds who murdered this 19-year-old. He was a total stranger to these boys. He didn't even know them. One of the killers posed for a picture wearing a mask with his machete, with a 42.5 centimetre black blade tucked into the top of his trousers hours before the murder. They punched, kicked, stamped on him, chopped at him with the weapon, suffering wounds to his back, his legs, his skull, with more than 20 centimetre deep fatal blow puncturing his heart. What is going... These disgusting animals. It's just horrible. Going to take a short break now because I need one, and give me a call and cheer me up, would you? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We're going to take a break, and then I'm going to hand the floor to you because, quite frankly, I'm pretty shaken up by that story. I'll